What is up, guys? Welcome back to a very different episode of the Nourish with Renata podcast. So, today we're actually doing a really fun behind the scenes look at a retreat that I co host with the wonderful Mary Hopper, and it's called the Slow Down Retreat. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Renata.
So, this is going to be really fun because we've never really done a debrief like this so that other people can hear it. And we think it would be really powerful, especially if you've been interested in this retreat or a retreat like it, or have been wanting to host a retreat yourself, to hear us reflect, to hear us talk about planning it, and ultimately to hear the why behind why we do what we do. So before we get into that, just in case no one knows you yet, Mary, which I think is impossible, maybe you could just say who you are and what you
I am
do.
quite famous
You
here
are.
in Renata's Nourish world. Um, yes, so my name is Mary, and I am an author. I've written a book called Lighten Up Your Life. I'm working on my second book. I am a retreat host. I coach women. I do one-on-one coaching. I have a couple membership spaces. And really, my whole mission in life is to teach women how to take care of themselves, how to put themselves first, how to connect again with their inner intuition, their knowing, and live their best life. Because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah. And this is really why the Slow Down Retreat came about. So, do you want to talk about that whole process of its inception?
Yes. So I lost my mom in October of 2020, and that was really a huge shift for me, obviously, navigating life without her and trying to figure out what that looks like as a young mom. I mean, I had two little babies at the time, and I knew that I needed to take care of myself. I knew that that was a big piece of my journey, of my healing from this trauma, essentially, of losing my mom. And so I started going to yin yoga. And at yin yoga, which, if you're not familiar with yin, it is a slower restorative yoga practice. And we are put into positions, uh, restorative positions, so nothing too crazy. But it's a challenge because you have to hold them for 4 to 5 minutes. And so the challenge lies more in the mental than in the actual physical holding of the position. And there is a lot of release that happens during the holding. But it was during one of my yin classes. I had been going consistently for a while, once a week, and had learned how to slow down in that class. So an hour and 15 minutes for sure of my week was spent in um, in my own presence, really just for myself. It's quiet there. I was, mindful of my body and what was happening in that space. And during that time, I thought, this has really helped me. And how can I take what's happening here in this space and and create something that other women can experience, not just 1 hour a week. And from that, the Slow Down Retreat was born. I knew that I needed an entire weekend or a more time than just an hour to give myself that space for whatever it is that I needed to make myself feel good. And a lot of it at the beginning was just taking the space just to even listen and hear myself. We are so distracted by all of the noise, everybody else's needs around us, that it's really difficult, if you're not being intentional about it, difficult to even know what you need. And so that was the first part of it. What do I need? And I knew I needed time away. I knew I needed community, a community of women, friends, people that can support me and hold me during the times that I need them to, and women and this community to push me to be better, be a better version of myself. And so I created it. I said, I'm going to host a retreat. And my friend Kat said, I don't care where it is, what you're doing, how much it costs, I'm there. And just having that one person believe in what I had to offer so much that she was like, I'm in no matter what. That was enough for me to say, I'm in no matter what, too. And here we are, 3 retreats later, and many more to come. I've got one in a month, and then I've got another one in later this year. So by the end of 2024, we will have had 5 slowdown retreats, which is mind blowing. And it continues to grow and evolve and impact women outside of the retreat space as well. It's just been such a beautiful thing.
I love it so much, especially because one of the main focuses, you could say, of the Slow Down Retreat is that there's actually no agenda. There's not like scheduled classes or skill-based learning that you might experience in other forms of retreats. And not saying that one is good or bad or right or wrong, but simply that based upon what you just shared, the Slow Down Retreat is powerful because it gives you the time and space to hear yourself again.
Yes.
So do you want to speak a little to that? Because that might be quite revolutionary for some people because they're thinking, oh my gosh, no, I'm supposed to go to a retreat and like get something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in a way,
Mm-hmm.
people do, it's just through a different method.
Yes. It's not the doing, it's the being. And so it really allows you that space and time to be. And many of us don't know what that feels like or how that feels. And that's the most powerful thing we can do for ourselves, is give ourselves that time.
Right. Especially because in this world that we live in now, it's so easy to distract oneself with the
Yes.
myriad of other things that we could be doing in order to feel productive or to feel worthy or to feel valuable in society. And so that's why I think that the Slow Down Retreat can be so impactful. It's really about getting all those distractions out of the way. We don't turn on the TV necessarily. We might have some music that plays, but really it's about like, can you sit with yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And can you give yourself the opportunity to just think about the things that you haven't given space to yet?
Yes. Yep. We go deep. We go deep.
Yeah. So we just held the Slow Down Retreat in Katy, Texas,
Yes.
literally last weekend.
So good.
Crazy. And so we were going to do a little debrief to talk about it. So I'd love to hear from you. What were some of your biggest takeaways from this third iteration of the Slow Down Retreat?
Mm-hmm. I think one of my biggest takeaways was the affirmation and the confirmation that, yep, you are definitely on the right track. The weekend was exactly what all of us needed. And every retreat has been a practice in trust,
Mm,
trusting myself to create the space, trusting that I am communicating and sharing it with others who need it and will recognize that they need it and show up for themselves in this space. And so it's a lot of me trusting that I'm I'm enough, that I have done enough, and that the women that show up can also lead themselves to this space and through this space. And so like Renata said, there is not a schedule. There's no breakout sessions. There's nothing that we're doing. And that can feel really triggering to some people that want the value. They want to see the value before they commit, before they pay a lot of money to come to a weekend. And I understand that. And I think that the value is in the trusting that it will be everything that you need it to be, and building that self-trust that I know that I can give myself this. I can show up in this space and give myself what I need. I trust myself enough to give myself that.
mm,
So I think the big takeaway for me is just I'm constantly practicing and exercising that self-trust muscle. And this
mm.
retreat is the most beautiful way to do that.
Right. And it's such an important muscle for everyone to learn
Mm-hmm.
to practice. Because, like we were speaking about previously, this idea of distractions, it's there for a reason. It's giving someone something in order to not
Mm-hmm.
have to face the truth
Yes.
of something
Yes.
that might be going on in their life right now. And so I think it's actually really interesting to see how people respond to that space and time. Because just
Mhm.
like you said, it can be incredibly vulnerable to not
Yes.
have the comfort of a distraction to pull you away from maybe a big decision you need to make, or maybe a
Mhm.
refocusing on who you are and what you want. And that's what I really appreciate about being able to witness the journeys of the women who have come to the space, even though it might feel uncomfortable or scary, or it might feel like, I'm letting down the family or responsibilities, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. Ultimately, the most responsible thing you can do is to actually look after yourself.
Yes. Beautifully said. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, for me, I would say there are a couple of words that really popped out in terms of this third iteration of the slow down retreat. And just like you mentioned, every single one provides almost like a theme, I would say.
Mm.
Like,
Mhm.
there were lots of different themes in the first two. And in this particular one, for me, two words really came to mind. The first of which being soothing. I felt like all of the women came into the space and there was this immediate sense of being soothed. Now, that refers for me to our nervous system.
Mhm.
It refers to not having to be in that fight or flight mode and instead getting into that parasympathetic nervous system where we feel peaceful.
Yes.
The rest and digest phase is really, really important for lots of reasons, including regulating our hormones. So there's a whole scientific back, evidentiary based research that can show you
Mhm.
the importance of why this is helpful. And also, it was so important for the women to know that they were safe to do that
Mhm.
in the space. And so we really were fortunate because we knew these women from
Mhm.
previous endeavors or events or coaching spaces. And so
Yes.
there was a familiarity there that allowed us, I think, to settle into that space of soothing very
Agreed.
quickly.
Yes, I would agree. Yes, soothe your soul. That was kind of what when you said the word soothing, I thought, yes. And we can expand on that. And I really do think all of us had that experience of having our soul soothed by ourselves and each other. It was a really
Yeah.
powerful experience.
And even more so for us, because I think sometimes people think, especially if you're co-hosting or hosting a retreat, like there
Mhm.
can be a lot of stress associated with that, and it's
Yep.
understandable. And
Yes.
for us too, we felt like everything really fell into place. So
Mhm.
it was not just soothing for us, but also in alignment. So I do want to speak about alignment a little bit later, but I also want to come back to the second word that I felt like really spoke to the slowdown retreat in this particular sense, and that is potent. So I felt
Mhm.
like the space was not only soothing, it was also made up of the intention and intensity, for lack of a better word, of what people wanted. So it was such a concentrated atmosphere that it allowed for a lot of transformation to occur. And sometimes you don't get that when you're doing things on your own or in your house because of the distractions, etc.
Mhm.
So that's what I love about being able to pull people out of the familiar locations, bring them to a safe space so that they can really get focused and have that big paradigm shift in what they're experiencing mentally, emotionally, and physically too.
Mhm. Yes, that's exactly what happened. It was a really potent weekend. And I want to speak just a little bit about the intentionality of the weekend. Like we said, there is no breakout sessions, there's no agenda. We do eat. We eat very delicious, nutritious food prepared and planned by Renata. And her intention behind the planning of the meals is very thorough and in depth as well. There's a reason she chooses what she does, based on she can read energies and what people are needing, and I think the meals that she chooses support us nutritionally, yes, and energetically. And a lot of the things we ate were comforting and just very delicious, obviously, and make our bodies feel good. So we're in a space where we're eating things that we are feeling so good about eating too. So there's that. And to talk a little bit more about the intentionality of the space, I do burn incense in the space. And I think that that also adds to the experience, and everybody, it's the same incense at every retreat. In fact, every workshop or anything you do with me in person, you will smell the same incense burning. And I do that intentionally. I want people to experience that what they're meant to experience. And then if they want to bring that feeling back again, or when they're with me again, they'll have that same feeling, because feeling and smell are very linked. When you
Yes.
smell a certain thing, you can later smell that thing and be brought back to those moments. And so that's a very intentional piece of the entirety of the weekend. Another piece is we drink a lot of tea. Tea is a very important part of the weekend, and tea can be a ritual. And I teach my clients, and I teach the women that are in my spaces that tea is a really beautiful way to slow down and to check in with yourself. So just making a cup of tea, either right away in the morning or sometime throughout your day, can really bring you back to yourself. And so we drink a lot of tea. We stay hydrated the whole weekend. But the tea drinking is another intentional piece of the experience of the weekend for many different reasons. So,
Yeah. So what you're speaking to really for me is basically tying in the senses to the
mhm.
experience that we're having at the slowdown retreat. And I
Yes.
agree that is a huge part of it, because especially when we're going into a situation that we might not be necessarily comfortable with. For instance, we're
Yep.
making time for ourselves. We're literally setting aside multiple days to put ourselves first, which can feel incredibly challenging,
Yes.
right? For
And
so
we're
many
in a
women.
space with other women that we haven't met before, and we don't know how that will go as well. That can feel
Totally.
scary.
Yeah. So, what's really comforting is when you tie in certain sensory experiences like scent or taste or
Mhm.
warmth or things like that, then we start to embed this new way of being into your psyche because it's very
Mhm.
tangible. And then you know that even if I'm not physically in this location anymore, for instance, when I leave the retreat, I can then pick up this tea or burn this incense or eat this particular food based upon the recipe I've shared. Like that is how we keep bringing ourselves back to center.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful.
So, yeah, let's talk about alignment because I know this is something you wanted to mention. And I think this is particularly helpful if anyone has been wanting to host a retreat or a workshop or anything else,
Mhm.
and they might have found it hard or challenging. So, what do you
Mhm.
want to talk about in terms of alignment and the creation of the Slow Down Retreat?
So when I first planned the slowdown retreat, I had no idea what I was doing. And like I said, it took one person to believe in what I was doing. And then, of course, I asked Renata to come along with me, and she said yes. And since then, I it has felt that every decision in the process of all of the planning of the retreats has felt easy. And I think that that is because I haven't forced anything. If it doesn't feel good or right, I don't move forward with it. Um, yeah, everything for this last retreat, I mean, we ordered sweatshirts, what, 2 weeks? We had the idea to get sweatshirts two
Maybe.
weeks before,
Yeah.
not even. And it just lined up that the right people that we needed, and the all of the things just fell into place, and we all had really warm, cozy sweatshirts, hooded sweatshirts to wear, and they were a highlight for me of the weekend. So it just has felt easy,
Effortless. Yeah.
effortless. Yeah. Yep.
Another really good example of that was, for instance, we had a welcome call, which we do for every retreat.
Hmm.
And one of the women in there said, like, I'd really love to get a massage.
Hmm.
And I literally said, let me ask some people I know. And this is roughly 3 days, I think, before
Yes.
the
Yep.
retreat started.
It was
And
Tuesday and we got together on Thursday.
yeah. And
Yep.
what was amazing was in about 5 or 6 hours, just like effortlessly contacted a friend who referred another friend. She was available. It turned out she was available on a day that she would normally not be available, but she was.
Hmm.
And it was like the sweet spot for her in terms of the number of clients to be able to literally come to the retreat space,
Hmm.
give everyone incredible massages. Literally, everyone came out of the massages looking like so relaxed and calm.
Yes, it was really, really wonderful.
But to
Yes.
your point about how it felt so easy and it never felt forced. It was literally
Hmm.
like, oh, let me just see if I can find someone. And then
Yeah.
someone popped up and it was wonderful.
Yeah. I think a lot of that is our detachment to the outcome. We
Mm,
trust that what is meant to be will be. And so
mm.
when these things pop up, instead of having the perspective that, oh man, this is another thing I have to do, and then getting in our heads about, shoot, should we have made the massage part of the retreat to begin with, and like, spiraling down that way, we thought, wow, what a great idea to make this an addition. And now moving forward, this is something we're going to think about when we choose the location and the next retreats. I think having a massage as part of the retreat is a really potent part of the experience. And but it's because we allowed it to be, and we
Mm,
didn't try to micromanage and try to make it be a certain way. We let it be what it was going to be.
100%. The other thing that I wanted to talk about that I think is really interesting with the slowdown retreat is everyone has a very unique perspective on what just happened, right? And so some people are coming into the space. I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but some people are coming into the space because specifically they want to, for instance, just have my cooking again, you know, and spend like, or like specifically to come in and have you do card pulls for them
Yeah.
to give them a better
Yep.
understanding of what's going on in their lives right now.
Hmm.
Right. But for
Yes.
me, I think an overarching theme is actually introspection. So
Mm.
we talked about during the retreat, and some people may know through your social media, you use card pulls as a form of inner knowledge for the person. And
Hmm.
it's allowing them to ask questions of themselves to gain a deeper understanding of who they are and what they
Hmm.
want and what are they being called to show up as or for in their lives. So I'd love to hear from you, especially because it can seem like for everybody coming in, like they're all garnering something amazing and different from it. But ultimately, it's about understanding oneself at an even deeper level.
Hmm. That is so true. So true. I have to mention, so before we had our welcome call this time around, I did ask Renata to bring her card deck to the call. And I asked her to pull a card while we were on the call, but not tell anybody. And that card would be the overarching theme of our weekend. And so when we all came together that Thursday and shared our first meal together at the table, Renata brought out the card, and of course, it was the warrior woman. And I think the question was, "What are you being called to your highest?"
Have you answered your deepest calling? That's great. So I got it.
Good
I got it up here.
thing.
Yeah.
I was way off. Can you say that one more time?
Yes. So it was, have you answered your deepest calling?
Have you answered your deepest calling? So powerful. And I think that question really was the jumping ground for us to dig deeper into some of these women's lives, into how they're showing up and how they want to create their life to be, and where the disconnect was between how things are and how they want them to be. So there was a lot of introspection and uh I like to say digging deep. We're excavating really
Mm.
what's deep down inside. what's stopping us from
Yeah.
answering that highest calling.
And it can be incredibly scary and vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
to be asked that question. It can feel super uncomfortable,
Yes.
especially in front of people that perhaps you've just met, to then be faced with such a big question that maybe no one has ever asked you before.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to shout out to all the women because they were so brave and courageous to be able to sit there and to take it in and to do what they needed to do, whether it was journaling, talking through it, walking, thinking, meditating, etc., to really figure out, where am I now and where do I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And how can I create that bridge to get there?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. Well, I'm curious because you brought this up
Cool.
earlier. um, because we did also do a debrief when we were together after the retreat, and we thought
Yeah.
about things that we've learned that we're also going to take into account in future retreats. I think this
Mm-hmm.
is a really great practice for anybody that might be doing a workshop or anything in regards to their business. That reflection process is huge because it really does allow you to continue to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the things we learned from this retreat that we're going to take forward? I know you mentioned the massages.
Yes, the massage, definitely. Uh, I think we got way more clear on, I mean, this is a business that we're running. And when we host these retreats, we are looking to be profitable from them. And so we really got clear on what that looks like, what needs to happen in order to make them profitable for our business and have that impact that they have. I mean, the impact is there. I don't think we need to tweak that too much. Just continue to show up as we have been. I really feel confident in what we have created. But yeah, there's some things moving forward that we know should happen to create that for ourselves and our business. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
think some of the things that were really helpful for us this time around and that you've been doing
yeah,
as well, obviously getting clear on expenses has been a huge part of
yes,
that.
yep,
Been able to really get much more focused with expenses
yes,
while also giving the best experience for people. So like no one went hungry,
right.
no one felt like they didn't have space or room or anything like that in
Hmm.
the place that we hosted the retreat. So that's really our first concern, making sure
Yes,
everyone is safe and comfortable.
yes.
And then from there, I think it's been an iterative process of determining, okay, how much do we need to spend on things like groceries or
Hmm.
goodie bags, or
Hmm.
what do we want to spend our money on that makes the most sense, but doesn't just feel like we're just giving people a bunch of stuff.
Yes, that's a huge piece of it. I want to
Yeah.
give everybody everything. And then I really have to step back and say, well, is this part of my brand? Is this part of who I am showing up as? And it isn't. I wrote a book called Lighten Up Your Life. And so
Right.
stuff really isn't part of
Part of
what
that.
I'm teaching. Yeah. So I've had to rein myself in because I wanted to add a lot of stuff to the goodie bags. And I know I do think the sweatshirts were just that was a huge piece of the comfort of the weekend. At least
Mm,
it was for me. I mean, everybody wore theirs all weekend. So I think that that was the case for the other women that were there as well. And it just goes to show I didn't plan a bunch of other little trinkety stuff for the goodie bags, and I didn't need to.
right. And I think that's a great reminder for people, especially when you want to host a workshop or a retreat or something similar. It can feel like, oh, I got to give stuff away. You
Hmm.
don't actually have to.
Hmm.
Allow yourself to provide what has the most impact for the attendees, and that's
Yes.
what we really focused on. So could we have given out like a ton of little trinkets? Of course, but it doesn't
Hmm.
really make sense for, exactly like you mentioned, the intention of your business, the intention of the space.
Yes.
And then I will say that, in terms of practical things, obviously when you're in a retreat with a bunch of people that perhaps you don't know well, having your own bedroom might be something that would
Hmm.
serve you most powerfully. So you do have a place to literally retreat to think, to process, to
Yes.
journal, to meditate, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think moving forward, we're going to continue to provide that opportunity to people, especially if they
Yes.
feel like they need it.
Yes, which is so interesting because that was one of the biggest hangups I had about hosting the first retreat. I knew that people would probably have to share bedrooms, and I didn't know how that was going to pan out. I had some fear around that, and it all panned out just fine, as it always does. And same with the second retreat. And this is the first retreat where we had somebody ask for their own space, which was a huge lesson for me, not lesson in a bad way, in a good way, because I, first of all, recognize, okay, no, I haven't taken note of this before, that somebody might need this and might need this, but not know how to ask for it. So giving
Yeah.
this as an option is an important part of people coming into this space.
Right. And especially for people that might be more introverted,
Yes.
perhaps
Yes.
they really recharge in
Yes.
their own, in their own space, room,
Yes.
without others around. And so that's key for us. We want people to feel recharged
Yes.
after having been at the slowdown retreat.
Yep. Yeah. That's a great point. I did forget about that. That is something we are going um to take into consideration as we move forward.
Yeah. So then next question really is, what else do you want to share about the slowdown retreat with people?
You should come to it.
Oh yeah.
So we did, in planning this retreat, I did plan a retreat. I do want to say I planned
Mm,
a retreat for last November. And we did not end up doing the retreat. We did not have enough interest. And instead of me spiraling and thinking nobody likes what I'm doing, everybody hates me, this is the retreat's stupid, all
right.
those
Which is
things that
so
I
easy to
could
fall
have
into.
done, right? It's a failure.
Yeah.
I failed, it failed, we all failed. I chose that was not where I was going to live. That was not, I wasn't even going to entertain those ideas. I chose to learn from it. Something wasn't aligned in that. People didn't show up for it because it wasn't right for them. And turns out it
Mm,
wasn't right for me or you either.
right.
And
Yeah.
it didn't happen. And that's okay. And this retreat here that just happened was meant to happen. The women that came into that space, the space we shared together, was 100% meant to happen. And I think that's what is so powerful about these weekends is we there were 5 of us there this weekend. We all left families, I think collectively between us, let's see, 10, 13, 17, 19 children between the 5 of us, I
A lot of
think.
children.
A lot of children left behind. No child
Like,
left
not
behind.
really left behind. Please don't send people after us.
I
Yeah.
know. Left at home under caregivers, obviously. But we all left a lot of life. Like we all left a lot behind to come to this retreat, to spend this time together and on ourselves. And I mean, it will never happen again that just the 5 of us are in this location at this time doing this thing. And I really had that moment of like a pinch me moment. Like, this is real. Like, this is impacting these women's lives and my life. And we are creating this together. This whole weekend, we're creating together. It was a really powerful space.
Absolutely. And the reason why I know it was powerful is because literally the next day, we're getting text messages from each of the various women that were there talking about what they're implementing. So it's
Mhm.
not just like, oh, I came to this cool thing and I relaxed, and then I went home and I was stressed out again. It was really like, look how I'm cooking differently. Look
Mhm.
how I'm making time for myself and going out into the sunshine and walking.
Yes.
Like, look how I'm learning a new skill. Look how I'm prioritizing meditation, or it's something that feeds my soul in a different way. And that's how I know for sure we made an impact.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, the group chat has been on fire.
It
I
really
love
has.
it. It has. That's one of my favorite things about it. Just after the fact, I can put my slow down retreat sweatshirt on and I can burn some incense and have a cup of tea and then scroll through the chat from all of you that were there, and it just feels so good.
It is. It is. Okay, so as we kind of round out this behind the scenes conversation about the slow down retreat, I
Mhm.
definitely want to give you time to talk about when the next one is going to be. But I also want to say that what I've learned from promoting and marketing the slow down retreat is actually not how many times we put it on social media or how many lives we did talking about it or anything like that. It has actually been the power of conversation.
Mhm.
And so, with the women that came to the event, it's the relationships that we've built through conversation that has been the most impactful. And not to get something out of it, not to be like,
Right.
I'm talking to you only because I have this really one specific focus of getting you to this
Right.
retreat. It's literally been to help her.
Mhm.
And what I recognized through this process of the launch and the lead up to the Slow Down Retreat is that it's not necessarily for everyone. It's not
Yes.
necessarily for someone who has just started in their self-awareness journey, for
Right.
instance.
Mhm.
And maybe they've, started finding a Mel Robbins podcast, or maybe they have started thinking a little bit differently from how they thought before in terms of what self-care means to them.
Mhm.
It's really for someone who has already started the journey. And they're also recognizing that perhaps they're at an impasse.
Mhm.
Perhaps they're like, I need to get to the next level, and I'm not totally sure how to do it. And the way that alignment works is that the right person is put in front of you at the right time.
Absolutely.
So that's been a great learning for me. And I think also important for people who also own a business or also want to run retreats or workshops, etc., to remember, because there are going to be times, as you mentioned, when no one signs up.
Mhm.
And there are going to be times when you feel like, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about this one thing, and a new person entered my world and they're talking about exactly that.
Mhm.
And so I just want to say, especially if you're feeling a little defeated because your workshop didn't get filled or your retreat didn't get anyone purchasing, keep going,
Mhm.
because alignment is real and we've experienced it every single time we've had a slow down retreat.
Mhm.
Right?
Yep.
Allow things to come to you. Allow
Yep.
the right people to turn up at the right time. And it's going to make complete sense when it does. And you're going to learn so much if it doesn't. And
Right.
so, this is what I really want to kind of end with in terms of my particular learning and takeaway. There's so much emphasis now, especially as business owners, to like promote, promote, promote. Like, are you doing X many emails or X many social media posts or
Mhm.
stories, etc.? And sometimes it's just important to remember, when you're in energetic alignment with what you're doing and your why, the right people are going to find you no matter what.
Mhm. Yep. It's about conversation and connection.
Mm. Yep. And that's the
Yep.
whole weekend too.
Yeah. And our whole life. Yay.
Exactly. So when is the next slowdown retreat?
I'm actually co-hosting a teacher slowdown retreat April 4th through the 7th in Erie, Pennsylvania with Nicole Van Tassel. I don't know if I've ever said her last name out loud.
That's correct. Yes.
But Nicole, I met at the second slowdown retreat. She was there. And then we also were at another retreat called Soul to Soul, hosted by our friend Teresa. We were at that retreat together, and being in the retreat space together, she approached me and asked if we could host a slowdown retreat together, something she has wanted to do. But I have done it before, so I can kind of guide her through that. And it's been such a lovely aligned process. And so we'll be meeting in about a month to have another retreat. And then there also will be one local to me. So in Iowa, I've not nailed down the exact location yet, but it will be in Iowa, and that will be October 24th through the 27th, 2024.
So, and of course, if anyone wants to find out more information about either of those retreats, as well as obviously connect with Mary with the incredible things that she's doing, we're going to leave all of her pertinent links in the show notes. Is there anything else that you want to share? Any words of wisdom before we end today's episode?
No, I think we covered it all. Just, it was so good.
It was so good.
So good.
So for anyone that doesn't know, the sweatshirts, and I have to also shout out Cherie for making our sweatshirt. She
Yes.
is incredible. Um, we have a like a catchphrase, you could say, that we somehow keep saying every time we do a Zodan retreat.
I think it
And
was
that
after the
phrase,
second one, and we just couldn't stop saying it. We were
I
just like,
know,
so good. It was
I
so
know,
good.
so good. So literally that's our catchphrase. And what was hilarious was we wanted to put it on the sweatshirt, and we just had the coziest, most beautiful colored sweatshirts with our catchphrase
Mhm.
on it. And literally people could not stop saying
Yeah.
it.
So it's our thing.
It is our thing. Yeah.
So good.
It's so good. Well, you know what was also so good was being able to do this debrief with you and being
Yes.
able to
Agreed.
share with everyone about the Sodan retreat and things to think about if you're planning an event or planning a retreat for yourself. It doesn't have to be challenging. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be hard work or stressful. It can literally be the most aligned practice of
Mhm.
everything that your business embodies.
Yes. Truly. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Guys, make sure to check out all of Mary's links below and make sure to reach out if you're interested in the upcoming Slowdown Retreat. We'll see you in the next episode.